I cannot get the best value out of my AI because the data isn't talking to each other.
And that's going to really evolve how we actually even Google search.
Future is already here, but it's not evenly distributed.
Let's get started. Welcome to Grey Matter and Code, brought to you by the Business Technology Club at Schulich. Grey Matter and Code is a podcast and a platform designed to spark open conversation with thought leaders across industries and markets, driving change and shaping what's next through decisions what they make today. Today, we have Moshe Mikanovsky. He's a product leader with over 3 decades of experience building digital products. He's a founder of Products for Good, and he's also an instructor of information systems and design thinking at the Schulich School of Business. Like us, he's also a podcaster of 2 podcasts and author. Welcome to our podcast, Moshe. Great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah. So maybe for our listeners, tell us a little bit more about yourselves and what do you do as part of Products for Good?
Yeah. So I love helping people with building great products. So part of it is I love teaching, and that's why I also love teaching here at Schulich. But also applying all the experience that I have from the past and trying to get people to really understand what are the risks in building products and how to elevate those risks. So in Products for Good, I'm helping founders, startup founders, avoid costly mistakes in building products and trying to create some good in the world.
What would be some exciting projects that you're working on right now? Can you share a little bit about it?
So I'm mentoring in quite a bit of the accelerators in the GTA and beyond, a bit beyond. And I'm developing a product bootcamp for founders where they can come for 6 weeks and learn on a regular basis how to put those tools together, how to have a framework together. So that's a personal project that I'm working on that I'm very excited about. And then so if anyone is interested, please check productsforgood.co or reach out to me on LinkedIn and I can share all the information with you. It's quite hands-on with a lot of help from me. So I hope it will be very helpful for founders. And then I'm always excited about the different products that I see people are building. Sometimes you're like thinking in your head, is that going to work? Is that going to work? When you dive into more details, you're like, okay, there is something there. There is something. That's why I always like to peeling it up and stuff like that. So I don't know if I can share any of those projects because, it's those founders specific projects. But I recently heard, different pitches or different founders working on products for marketplaces for farmers and products to organize events in a virtual way. Anything and almost every type of product that you can think about in prop tech, in health tech. So I'm always excited to hear about new things.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for all the background. And I think I love the mission and the passion for Products for Good. So you've spent around 20 years into the engineering world and before pivoting to the product side of things. Can you share the turning point where you decided to pivot and more into the startup ecosystem and into a very PM-focused philosophy?
Yeah.
When did that change?
Yeah, first of all, I love startups. So I also worked in startups as a developer. And that actually made me really close to clients and close to users. I was going to the users, I would apply the product over there and see how they will use it. And I will get their feedback. And that created this initial work that I actually did without even knowing that I was doing product management. Then after 20 years, I got tired a little in learning new technologies all the time because as a developer, you always have to be on top of new technologies and what's coming up. And also when I was looking for jobs, I was limited to only the stack that I was on. And a lot of startups actually were not on that stack. I was a Microsoft developer for many years. And it's more expensive to be a Microsoft developer, usually, back then at least, than open source developers, because open source had everything for free. So a lot of the startups were actually with those stacks. And then when I analyze what is it that I'm actually doing and what is it that I love doing, I realize it's the job of a product manager. So that was the switch that I made over there. I thought I knew everything about product management just by developing product, but on my first job in product management, I stepped on quite a bit engineering toes, telling them, do this, do that. Because of my experience, I was trying to solve it. And they really pushed back and said, you're responsible for the problem. Tell us what the problem you want to solve. We are responsible for the solution. So that was the first kind of a mindset shift that I had. And then over time, also learning how to work with stakeholders and learning what strategy is all about, and not just creating solutions for the sake of creating solutions, but really putting the strategy behind this. So it was over time, but that was the turning point.
Yeah, that's really great. The story really highlights all your lived experiences. So to build upon that, as a founder, you always wear a lot of different hats. You are sometimes a product developer, you are a PM, you are also a testing analyst sometimes. But how does leading product development as an entrepreneur differ from someone who is like a dedicated PM in a large organization?
Yeah, it's actually quite different. And that's what I'm trying to bring to the founders ecosystem. In the large organizations, there are many roles and many more people that are assigned to do different things, and they have to create first of all, ownership of each one, what is it that they're working on, but also how do they create in a team, so they have those challenges as well. And you will have also the high management that are creating the direction and the leadership and the strategy of where are we trying to get to, and then the lower individual contributors and the teams that are actually trying to build those things to match the directions. In startups, and especially when it's just the founders or their very early stages, usually you do all of it on your own, or you have maybe a couple of people that help you with that, a couple of co-founders, and you are wearing a lot of those hats, and you have to take care of a lot of those things. Many founders that I've seen are coming from either the business perspective of things, or they're coming from the technology. They're not necessarily coming from marrying them together. And that's what they will have the affinity to do these things, but because they don't have the frameworks or the tools that usually are used in the larger organizations, they might miss on many of those things. And that's what I'm trying to bring to them, to highlight the need, and also to expose them to those processes and frameworks and ways to work.
Great distinction. I think you're absolutely right. The scope changes and also the stake changes quite a lot. How do you guide entrepreneurs to embed ethical decisions and ethical considerations into their long-term thinking while working as a product manager from day one?
Yeah, it's a tough thing. I think it's first of all very ingrained in each one of us. What is moral to us? What's ethical to us? But many people create companies to make money. So if you separate between the two and you see you have a real passion to solve a real problem, you're much more already a step ahead than just making the money. So what are the right things that you have to do? What is the right decisions that you have to do for them? And at the bottom line is to also keep it on top of mind on decision making. And that's why I picked that name, because I want to remind people that, you can create great products and solve problems, but you might create also new problems. And we know that a lot of products out there are created a whole new type of products like social media. But now, after many years of people using it, we also know some of the problems that it created. Sometimes it's hard to see upfront, but many times we just forget to even look for it.
Yeah, that's such a crucial angle. I think you mentioned about social media, and every product decision right now can have like a very big consequence later on. We don't know much about new technologies like AI. So when helping founders aim for good outcomes, you mentioned, what are the core questions do you ask to surface like surface potential unintended harms or like negative externalities that can carry on early with their journey.
At the core of this is really about empathy to the users. So once you develop that empathy to the users, you want to see what are the everything about those users. So what are the good things that you can give to them, and what are the harmful things that it can create from that. If you don't have that empathy, it's very hard to even predict what type of problems you can create. On top of that, you also want to check your ethical compass and see, okay, are we crossing a specific line over here that we don't want to cross? There could be different examples. It's even with who are the clients you're willing to deal with. Are you willing to sell to online casinos or not? Because they are these are obvious, on the fringe of society. A lot of people are using them, but a lot of people are also hooked to them, and they have bad habits. But some people say, I'm not touching those things. So it's really up to the founders to define that.
Yeah, I love that. Like, you're trying to surface the early red flags that can actually save a lot of trouble downstream.
Hopefully. I mean, it's not a risk. You cannot completely remove the risk. It's risk mitigation.
Yeah. And you talked about empathy, and with empathy, I think comes into my mind goes towards design thinking. And you taught design thinking, and I was part of your class as well. So, what is design thinking, and how does it help entrepreneurs and resource-constrained founders, maybe at the start at their journey?
Yeah, design thinking is really that process of understanding the users with that empathy, and then trying different things. So it's open your mind into the opportunities that are out there, coming with ideas that may not work, but you might never thought about if you didn't go through the process. Try it with the users to see what works, what not, learning from them, and then really nail down the better ideas, the more successful ideas, etc. So it's a way to open your mind to the opportunities and find better opportunities because of that. That's usually how I see that.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's amazing how you can have some few interviews at the start of your journey, which can more towards the empathy side of the users, and that can change the course of how you move and what you actually wanted to build.
Yeah.
So many startups actually default to sort of a project mindset. I will not consider this as end goal. I will think of it as like a project, few iterations. What are the concrete steps that teams can embrace to ensure continuous delivery and maintain this sort of a iterative learning?
The first thing to do is to think about outcomes and not outputs. Projects have outputs in mind, because in a project it's about, I need to finish something at a certain time within the same specific budget, and these are the resources that I have. That's what projects are all about. And that's what I would do for years. We would celebrate a release of new version. Did anyone use that new version? I don't know, because we just released it today, right? But we'll go to have a party and whatever, because we worked so hard for it. But this is really a project mind thinking, where if you think about the outcomes, it doesn't really matter which project you're applying to create that outcome. You have to discover that outcome. So good leaders also, what they do, they define what is the outcome they're expecting to have, or at least the direction of the outcome, because they know that maybe that outcome is not going to be achieved. And they will not penalize the team for not achieving the outcomes. They might penalize the team if they didn't even try, but that's a different thing. And then they empower their teams to actually try iteratively different things, because everything is really a theory or a hypothesis or assumption, and then they can apply, design thinking, and they can apply different processes to find what is a good solution that might create, will move the needle on this outcome. So once you start thinking about this way, there is a lot that you change, because you change what you celebrate, you change your culture, and that's really helping teams to move into that direction.
Yeah, that's great. You talked about a lot about the journey of the development process and thinking of the end goal, but also not thinking about it. So, how do you help founders evolve from like having a fixed, like a 6 month or a 12-month plan into like a dynamic playbook that adapts user feedback, what we talked about in design thinking, and also the market shifts, like new emerging technologies like AI?
Yeah. First of all, I share with them my experience that every roadmap of 6 months or 12 months roadmap that I created in the past always failed. There is no, and that's not just me. I mean, there is countless stories and people that are saying you can never deliver anything 6 months ahead. We're mainly talking about software, and we're mainly talking about digital products. You know, when you're talking about building something physical, it's a bit different, especially if you're building something that you know how to build, and there is not a lot of unknowns. But with innovation and with digital products, there is a lot of unknowns going on. And because of those unknowns, it's very hard to deliver on something you planned a year in advance. So instead of doing that, I recommend to them to come up with what we call a now, next, later roadmaps. And we're taking basically a time box, and that's the bet that we're making right now. The time box could be 3 months, it could be 6 weeks, it could be six months. Usually 3 months, like a quarter, is a good time box that you can have enough work to do, and it's not too long that you develop too much. And then you're saying, okay, so what are the highest priority things that we want to do? And this is a time box that we're trying to do them. And this is not just about new features and we have to deliver all these features. It's outcomes, like we talked about before. So we need to deliver outcomes. And it's also part of it is experiments. We need to experiment different things. So it needs to be baked into that now. And then the priorities also will define what is next and what is later, because it's lowest priority. And then every quarter we define it again and again. It could be a bit tricky to founders and CEOs to do, mainly when they have pressure from the outside world to tell them, what are you going to develop now? What are you going to develop in a year from now, in 3 years from now? You know, investors many times. So this is a bit also about educating those outside world about this way of working, and setting up the expectations that it's about the outcomes and it's about delivering real results. When they will see this happening on an ongoing basis, they will start trusting the team that yes, you can deliver that.
Yeah, I think I agree with all the points that you mentioned about the now, next, and later, and also about the time boxed approach. It's really truthful that everyone has to follow sort of a living document and not be fixed with a particular schedule.
Yeah.
So, based on your experience, what are some common mistakes the entrepreneur and startup founders make when it comes to product management? Do they like pick up many features at once and try to deliver them all?
That's one of the problems, yes. I think that many founders listen to their ego, that they fall in love with their solution rather than with the problem they're trying to solve. So we have to be humble about it and to say, we know some stuff, but we don't know everything. And that's where hypothesis and testing things and experimenting will give us those the data to see is it true or is it not. So that will be the first thing, just put our ego a bit aside. With that is also about, like you mentioned, developing too many features that no one really need, and what's the point? And then trying to make things too perfect too early. So there is a lot of those things happening that you're developing. I've seen people in stealth startup for a year, and they develop for a year, and then they launch it. How much have they done testing with others or not? I don't really know. I think some of them do it. They just don't announce to anyone that they do it. But some of them just sit down and develop something for a year, and then there's maybe not a lot of need, or they don't really know who is going to buy it. So it's quite complex.
Yeah. And you mentioned your focus should be first on building like a MVP, a minimum viable product first, instead of just focusing on one feature. So let's shift the focus on once you're done building an MVP. How and when does a founder carve out the capacity to address technical depth Every day there is new technologies, new
Yes.
vulnerabilities that are coming
Yes.
up.
Yes.
How do startup founders actually address those?
So you need to get to a product market fit, and only when you get to a product market fit, you can really scale and grow your organization, your product, etc. Between the MVP and the product market fit, it's quite complex, and then that's and it's a different answer, about the technical debt. And technical debt is only one of the debts that you can have. You can have also product debt, you can have service debt, you can have other things. Technical debt usually is the one that people will talk about because the developers will be like, I need to fix that. And so they will have pressure on that. I would say that there is a breakdown of percentage. I don't have right now, the specific percentage, and there are different recommendations, but there is like a buckets that you can break down your work into, new enhancements that are going to be helpful and create more value to users versus new enhancements that are going to be for your organization. So maybe for customer support or internal operations, and then bug fixing, and then technical debt. And now technical debt, you could accumulate it over time, which does happen, and then it can become very expensive later on. So the closer you get to the product market fit, I would say the more you have to put attention to it as a bigger percentage of your bucket, right? Mm-hmm. I've been in situations that we stopped everything and we just put like a whole sprint just on one of those buckets. So that can happen as well, if you can afford it. It depends on the stage of the organization, of course.
Yeah, I think balancing the technical debt or any kind of debt with moving your whole product forward is really important. Mm-hmm. And with all of this different activities, I think we should talk about the prioritization frameworks. Like in product management space, RICE or Moscow are thrown out very easily. Does this truly work in a startup culture?
It's a really good question, because there are many different types of prioritization frameworks, and I don't think there is one that fits all, and I don't think that adopting one at any certain time might help in later on as the company evolve and whatever they find. So I think it's more about understanding why you prioritize, and and starting also with a vision and a strategy, because without having a product vision and product strategy that needs to be aligned with your company vision and strategy, then it's very hard to prioritize. So you might find things that seems like high value and low effort, but if they don't align with what you're trying to build, then why build them? Right? So there is a lot of things beyond just the prioritization methods. It's great to learn different type of methods and stuff like that, but see what makes sense to your organization at any given time and say, okay, now we're trying this, we might have to adjust it as we go by. Let's see how it's aligned with our vision and strategy, and let's see if we need to tweak it to our needs based on what makes sense, really.
That's really great. You talked about all the prioritization frameworks, but one does not fit all. So it has to be adapted well. With different, once you have like a product yourself, you try to think of building everything in-house. But it's important to think about third-party integrations as well and strategic partnership, which can actually help you accelerate your product evolution and the user value. How can that be done?
Yeah, I usually try to focus on the core value that my product is creating, that unique value proposition we are creating, and then everything around it, try to kind of see what was already built before. Can I use that as a third party, or get someone that already have that expertise and get them to help me with that? I've seen, and I was part of many projects that we wasted ton of time developing things that million of other people already developed in the past. So every new product, especially when you have users, start with a login page, and then you will work with the designer for 2 weeks about how is the login happening. And it always drove me crazy and I would tell the designer, millions of people have designed this before. Just give me the best thing and let's do that. And there would be still discussions. So this is a simple one, right? When you're talking about integration and other systems, there is a lot of systems out there that can help with many different things. And in one of my podcasts, it's called Product for Product. We're covering, me and my co-host Matt Green, different products that product people are using, and some of those products are more tooling that you add to your product, you integrate them, and then you use them to help you understand the product. So product analytics systems, for example, very simple integrations usually, and then you can start collecting data and see how people are using and going through the product, etc. There is no need to develop that if it already exists out there, right? Sometimes some of those systems are not cheap to use, but you can start with smaller ones that or the newer systems out there that will give you better prices, and then maybe graduate to the more expensive ones and stuff like that. But in general, don't try to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, I think that's really great in terms of partnerships can boost your career in your product growth, but it's also good to evaluate the in-house and the available options. Having discussed product value now, I think we are in the realm of AI right now, and a very important thing with product is scalability and personalization. With the advent of AI and agentic AI, how do you think these opportunities will change to enable AI and automation in product spaces?
Right. So AI as a whole right now is still a trend. And as a trend, an early stage, quite early still, technology, even though now it's becoming much more available to everyone is talking about it. Because of that, there is many people that are trying to build AI solutions or solutions based on AI that are not necessarily the best usage of AI. So you really first have to see, is that really the right solution for that or not? There is also the aspect of, is AI just helping you to replace things that you're doing? Or is it AI doing things that are cannot be done by human at all? So, for example, in medical tech, medtech, or health tech, there is quite a bit of AI systems that without the AI, you couldn't have even done it. There is a system, I don't remember their name right now, but they take pictures of the back of the eye, and they can tell early stages for early signs for Alzheimer, and only AI can do that. So it's really quite incredible what AI can do. I definitely think the revolution is there. We cannot bring it back. We have to definitely be ethical about it and see how it will impact people, and then choose the right places where it's a good fit and the other places where it's probably overkill, which comes to also analyzing the price, paying for AI, because AI can be also depends on the number of interactions, etc. It could be also quite expensive to use as well. So is this really something that has to be done with AI?
Yeah, we can't deny the fact that AI is a game changer, but we have to find the right opportunity with the cost and also keeping the ethical considerations in check. Finally, what is one piece of product management advice would you leave with every founder at navigating through their startup journey?
So we always look at the 4 risks of building products. Is the value to the users, the viability to the organization, the usability to the users, and feasibility, can we build it? And usually founders or startups will think about the value to the users because they will think about the users. They will think about can we build it, because they will have engineers or someone technical to try to build it. They might think about the usability of it. The viability, they will think about it as well, but they may not have ownership to who actually owned those things. And that's usually what product management is coming from, the value and viability ownership. So what is the value to the user and what is the viability to the organization? And with that, I would also want to add things we discussed before about outcome versus outputs, and fall in love with the problem, not with the solution, and experiment, test things before you spend a lot of money on building things no one would want.
That's really a great sum of all the takeaways that you have told so far. I couldn't agree more. Before we wrap up, any book or a podcast or any article that you would recommend to our listeners, and something you have that has inspired you to pivot towards the product management side?
Yeah. Well, first of all, my podcast, but I'll mention that maybe in a second. But there is one book and one person that is really like considered the guru of product management, and that is Marty Kagan. And he's the founder of the Silicon Valley Product Group, SVPG. And he writes a great blog, and he published several books so far. The first one is Inspired, and this is really for product people. Then he also, and he talks a lot about this, a lot of the things that we talked about today, what makes a good team, what makes a bad team, what makes a good product manager, what makes a bad product manager, etc. He also published two other books. One is called Empowered, which is about managing teams and empowering them. And the third one is Transformed, about entire organization transforming into. But I would start with Inspired, because that's really an inspiring book. And the more you read into it, the more you learn from it. But of course, I must mention my podcast. So I mentioned Product for Product before, and the other one is called Beyond Product. And I interview founders over there and learning a bit more about their journey, a bit more about their technology, a bit more about even failures and tips to other founders. So that could be an interesting one for founders.
I want to take a moment to sincerely thank you for joining us today. Here at Business Technology Club at Schulich and the Grey Matter and Code, we really appreciate your time. And until next time, thank you for watching.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.